And we are live. There we go. All right, beautiful. Okay. Alrighty. Alrighty. Now that we are live, we're gonna mess around with a couple things right here. This is my first time, so bear with me ever going live. We're gonna talk about UFC 300. The lovely card that is being put together as of right now. So many things to be determined, as we can see. So, we're just going to bring this over here. Bring that over there. Oh, look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? All right. So we're going to shrink me a little bit. I'm going to put myself right over there. I'm going to bring this. I'm going to shrink that like so. And we're going to come over here. This might be a little bit of a mess, because I've never done this before. So, excellent, excellent. All right, cool. So there's a couple of things that we need to talk about today. Anyone that comes onto this live stream, which is probably none, which is fine, because this is how we start. We start with none, and then people are going to try and tune in here and there. And yeah. So the first thing we're going to talk about, one of the main things that I want to talk about with this whole thing that's going on, is everyone seems to be on social media, and they're talking about this new announcement with the Bellator PFL champs versus champs, and this is absolutely insane how this is happening right now. And forgive the ridiculous background; I don't have time to make anything special. Um, but yeah, so the PFL versus Bellator thing. So let's take a look at that real quick. PFL versus Bellator. Okay, so the champions versus champions event. Now, I don't know. This is like really tough here, guys, because basically what happens is this. So Don Davis. Don Davis is the CEO, or I guess he's the Dana White of the PFL as of right now. So he goes on Ariel Helwani's show. And Ariel Helwani is a person that I am really genuinely not a fan of. I've never been a fan of him. Um, it's been going around that people are calling him a weasel, and I couldn't agree more. That's a nicer term that I would use. I mean, just look at what happened between him and Jamal Hill, especially after Jamal Hill went on his show. Which, the way I look at it, Jamal Hill was kind of doing him a favor doing that, because Jamal Hill, at the time when he did that, was the champion and then got injured. And then all of the back and forth happened between him and then Ariel Helwani going and speaking to Yuri Prohaska. And then words were exchanged, and it seemed like Ariel was doing what he does best, and he started poking the bear. Well, it seems like he's doing that yet again, and we're going to talk about exactly how he's doing that. It's blatantly obvious that Ariel Helwani hates Dana White, and it's very obvious that Dana White hates Ariel Helwani. It's very obvious that those things have transpired over the years and years and years that Ariel has been a reporter on mixed martial arts. I don't know. I mean, Ariel was with ESPN during 2020, during Bovid, because we don't like to say the C word. Lord only knows why, because apparently people still get banned for saying things. Um, but during that whole time frame, Ariel Helwani was, he was working for ESPN, and he had his show, which was not bad. It was, Ariel in DC. It was every Monday. It was a nice thing to keep us busy during that time. And they would talk back and forth, and the show wasn't that bad. Ariel was less of a weasel during that time frame. And then all the things happened where ESPN had come up with his contract was up at ESPN, and then he had to do one of two things: he either had to take the new contract they were offering him, or they had to go separate ways. Or he could have countered. I mean, I don't know. But apparently, what had came out was he had gotten offered less money than his original contract, which I believe was $500,000 a year as a salary. The thought that that man makes 500 grand doing what he does is kind of painful, especially because, again, he likes to just poke the bear. I don't, it's not even a matter of like, oh, he asked the questions that, guys don't want to ask or whatever. It's not even a matter of that. He likes to start shit. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. He loves starting shit. And he does it every time he has someone on. It seems like he is trying to start shit always. And then he'll pull back and he'll play victim and pretend that, oh, I didn't do anything wrong. So it's the same thing that Ian Gary is doing right now, which drives me crazy. And we can even talk about that too. But anyway, so Ariel Helwani has Don Davis on. When Don Davis goes on, this is the not the most recent one, the one before that, and he's talking hella crap about the UFC indirectly, and it's the same thing as always: is Ariel Helwani's poking the bear and trying to start shit. And Don Davis said plenty of things, and he delivered on a lot of them. But one of the things he did say was he basically alluded that they have Michael Venom Page, they're doing all these big things, and talking about how the super fight division they're putting together and bringing in Francis Ngannou for the super fights, and then they're going to have Jake Paul on there, which I still, for the love of God, don't see how that in any way is an asset to the business. His fan base is children who have no money, who don't pay for anything anyway. So it's not like you're going to bring in this person who has zero mixed martial arts experience and have a gigantic turnout when it comes to money. You're going to get viewership, but it's all going to be pirated. Everyone knows this. The type of fan base he brings in, it's a younger crowd. A lot of them don't have money, mainly because his brother stole it from all of them with his crypto zoo scam. But that's besides the point. So they bring in Jake Paul and they have Francis and they have this whole super fight thing that they're talking about. And then Don Davis also talks about how they're launching WPFL, which is Women's Professional Fighting League. Now, Sean Strickland said something recently, which I don't agree with, but I understand where he's coming from. I'm different than most people, I'm sure, when it comes to this stuff. When it comes to women's sports, I don't watch any of them except for women's MMA. But the reason why most people watch it is because the UFC intertwines that with their normal fight cards. They don't have a separate thing like WUFC, Women's Ultimate Fighting Champion. They just have Ultimate Fighting Championship. They intertwine the females with the males fighting on the same card. So by default, unless you're going to change the channel when a female fight comes on, you're going to watch the fights. You're going to watch the females fight. I personally love watching the females fight. Most of the time, it's a good fight. Sometimes there's stinkers, but that's the same thing with men. There's a lot of stinky fights with men also. So outside of that, the UFC does this, and I think it's a great idea. I understand that the PFL is trying to do something different. I get it. We're going to be different. We're going to do this, and that's just how it's going to go. I'm going to turn this light on. Maybe it does absolutely nothing. Never mind. So we're going to do this because we're different. So they did the WPFL now, which the WPFL is going to be an all women's fighting league, which is essentially what Invicta is. Invicta is considered the #1 feeder organization for female mixed martial artists into the UFC, or at Bellator when it was a separate thing, or even the PFL. They usually have cultivated the best female talent before they go into the big leagues. LFA also has female fights, and they're incredible too, which has brought us a lot of fun female fights. Vanessa Demopoulos is one that comes to mind. I know she was in the LFA, and she's a lot of fun to watch. So the whole idea of doing WPFL, I think, is absolutely ridiculous because the PFL can barely draw viewership to their normal season league, which has males and females already, which most people like to watch the males fight. Not saying they don't like watching the females, but now you're going to separate that and have females fighting on their own card, which is going to limit the amount of people that are going to see them, because a lot of people, just like the WNBA, are not going to tune into that. And this is one of the things I agreed with Sean Strickland saying when he said, I want to see two lions fight. I don't want to see two cats fight. So I understand that. But if you get two lions fighting, and then you got two cats fighting, and then you get two lions fighting on the same card, you're not going to really turn off the TV, especially considering the two cats are going to beat the living crap out of each other. And it's still fun to watch. But if you have a separate organization trying to do this and bring viewership, that's not going to help. That's only going to hurt the viewership on the female fighters. I understand what they're trying to do, and they're trying to be different. I just don't agree with it. I really don't. I think it's stupid. I think it's going to hurt the female fighters more than it's going to help them. But that's the first thing with the whole thing with Don Davis. Now, the next thing is Don Davis now comes on Ariel Helwani's show again. And remember, this last time he was, oh, we got Michael Venom Page. We're going to do this. We have that. He's always doing, always trying to one up on the UFC. And then at the same time, in the same statements, like, we don't really care what the UFC is doing because we're different. I mean, but every chance he gets, he's trying to one up them, and it just doesn't work. At least in my opinion, it just doesn't work. So now enter the most recent announcement, and don't get me wrong, I'm a gigantic fight fan for all kinds of fighting. I am excited about this, regardless. I am very excited. It's fun for me. The casual fan is probably not going to tune into this. I don't know why personally. I think it's silly because the casual fan should be watching this stuff. It's fun. I got to make an adjustment here. It's so dark. Why is it so dark? There we go. I need a little more light. Let me see. How's that? Is that a little better? Oh, that's better. Now you can actually see me. So the casual fight fan might not tune into something like this. So if you actually look at this card, the entire card, okay, it's going to be, let's see, okay, Saudi Arabia, January 16th. That's where it's apparently going to be, right? It's the first ever PFL super fight event. Will feature 7 matchups between current and former champions, as well as title challengers from PFL and Bellator, and will be available on ESPN Plus pay-per-view and DAZN beginning at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. In addition, 3 major showcase bouts will take place during the preliminary card, airing US ESPN News and ESPN Plus in the US beginning at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, this is going to be on... Well, obviously, this isn't going to be on January 16th. I'm sorry. It's on February 24th. January 16th is when it was announced. So, if you go down on the card, the main event for this is Renan Ferreira, fresh off his emphatic second-round TKO victory during the 2023 PFL Championship, meets the first athlete in Bellator history to become champion 2 weight divisions simultaneously, which is Ryan Bader. Now, anyone that watches fights knows that Ryan Bader used to be in the UFC. He came off of The Ultimate Fighter, and he is not a bad fighter by any means. He's extremely good. He lost My phone is recording me doing activity because I talk with my hands so much. He lost in the UFC to a lot of the guys that were good, like that were the best. I mean, he lost to John Jones. I want to say he lost to Daniel Cormier, but I could be wrong. But he lost to the best of the best in the UFC. When he ended up leaving, he goes over to Bellator and essentially kind of became a superstar there, as we see, the first guy in Bellator history to become a champ in two weight divisions. He became the light heavyweight champion and the heavyweight champion. Now, when he was in the UFC, he fought at light heavyweight because there was no goddamn way he was going to become the champ at heavyweight in the UFC. That just was not happening. When he went over to the PFL, I'm sorry, when he went over to Bellator, as we know, it's not the same caliber of fighter over there. It's just not. It's and again, respect every single person that steps in there and fights. I don't care if you're on the prelim of the CFFC in Atlantic City or at Philadelphia, whatever. If you're stepping into an octagon and you are fighting, you have my respect for doing that because that's not normal to do something like that. It's when you think about it, it's insane. And that's why I love it. It's so fucking cool. So, the first fight is between Brendan Ferreira, who's 12-3, um, against Ryan Bader, who's 31-7. Clearly has way more experience. Brendan Ferreira is a real heavyweight, though. I think this guy is like 6'8". He's a big dude, and he's good. Like he's not bad. This guy would do good in the UFC. I really do believe he would. This would be fun to watch this guy fight in the UFC. He's extremely athletic. The guy could do backflips, being as big as he is, and so on. Ryan Bader's got great wrestling. I mean, he's a talented guy. I just don't think that he will be able to do much against a guy who is a real heavyweight, who is this big, and who is not like an old guy who's. I don't want to. I hate using the term UFC outcast or anything like that, but he's not an old man who's coming in and fighting. Like this is a talented dude who's a big guy, and he's looked really good. But that's the main event. Renan Ferreira versus Ryan Bader. First of all, most people don't even know who the hell Renan Ferreira even is. And that's the main event? I understand it's the heavyweights and like, that's considered the baddest man on the planet or whatever. But that's crazy to me that's the main event because the main event should be something that is going to pull the most numbers and pull the most viewers. I don't think that Ryan Bader versus Renan Ferreira is gonna do that. I don't see that. So you move down the card more. I'll get to who I think should be the actual main event of this card. You move down a little bit more, and you have the light heavyweight fight. Newly crowned PFL light heavyweight kingpin Impa Kazag. I don't know how to say his name. Kazagnia returns to 185 pounds for the first time since joining the PFL when he challenges the man many fans consider the best middleweight on the planet, undefeated Johnny Eblen, who's 14-0. I somewhat agree with that, and even Sean Strickland, who trains with Johnny Eblen on occasion, who is the current 185-pound champion at the time of this live stream, who's fighting this weekend against Dricus du Plessis. Even he says that Johnny Eblen is one of the best middleweights on the planet. Everyone that knows this guy says that he is definitely one of, if not the best middleweight on the planet right now. It's Johnny Eblen, who's 14-0. Impa was in the UFC. He's 15-3 and moved over to PFL, went through the PFL season, which I believe was 5 fights over the course of however so many weeks. It's extremely difficult to do. I'm not saying it's not. He fought a bunch of guys who I have never heard of. I've been watching this sport religiously for a very long time. I've never heard of who he fought. And then the guy that he beat to get the PFL light heavyweight title, again, dude, if you look him up on the internet, like he doesn't even have a thing on Wikipedia, the guy he fought. And that was the guy who he fought to win the belt. He doesn't even have a Wikipedia profile, man. Like that's what I'm saying. It's like those types of things are strange to me. Now, great for him. He changed his whole life. The guy said he was like homeless, living out of his car and all that stuff. He won $1 million, winning the whole, championship in the PFL. That's awesome. That's great. I'm thrilled for him. Fucking awesome. Cool. He is going to get destroyed by Johnny Eblen in this fight. Johnny Eblen is going to murder him. Also, consider that Impa is not. How do I say this without being disrespectful? After Impa won and beat the guy who I still don't even know, I don't even remember his name, he was talking about fighting Francis Ngannou, and everyone knows why he was challenging Francis. Now, obviously, he's fighting back at 185, which is his normal weight class, which is what he became a highlight reel in the UFC against, oh my God, what's his name? The crazy dude who did the jumping spin kick. He caught it and did the kick or whatever. Oh my God, what is his name? Joaquin Buckley. He became, the highlight reel for Joaquin Buckley, and now he's going back and he's fighting Johnny Eblen. Johnny Eblen is one of the best, okay, in the world, and he's going to fight him. We know what's going to happen here. Like, we know. Johnny's going to beat the living shit out of him. He's going to wrestle him, and it's going to be really, really bad. Moving down further, two-time PFL champion Magomed. I don't even know how to say this guy's fucking name. He's 34-6. That's insane. He's got 40 fights. I don't know how old he is. He's on a 6-fight unbeaten streak, and he's fighting Jason Jackson, who is the current welterweight champion in Bellator. Now, Jason Jackson had an unbelievable win recently over the current champion, Yaroslav Ama. Oh, these fucking names are so difficult. Now that's not a bad fight. That's a fun fight. Again, it's two guys that not a lot of people know, but that's a fun fight. That's a very competitive, fun fight. Jason Jackson is awesome. He is an awesome fighter. This guy Magomed, if he's a two-time PFL champion, I'm sure he's very talented too. Again, a ton of experience coming in with 40 fights. It should be fun. Not main event material, of course. No, it's not. You go a little bit further down, Jesus Pinedo, who, oh God, he just won the PFL championship. Again, another guy I haven't really heard of. And he's fighting Patricio Pitbull. I mean, come on, man. Come on. Like, Pitbull is going to fucking kill this guy. Like, this is such a fucking mismatch. This whole fucking card, it's a mismatch. Pitbull would do amazing in the UFC. I'm not saying he'd be champion, but the guy would do amazing. I don't think he's beaten like the top guys, the guys who are like top 5 at featherweight in the UFC, but the guy's good. Like, the guy is really, really, really good. I don't like, this is another fucking mismatch again. And Patricio was a 2-division champion in Bellator. And again, I know a lot of people don't give that a lot of people don't give that anything, which is stupid because it's impressive. It's extremely impressive. And again, the guy's got over 40 professional fights. Him and his brother, they're very, very talented. Both could do well in the UFC. I mean, we saw. Look at what happened with Michael Chandler. I mean, if there's anyone that could come in, and that's why I'm really hoping. I love Kevin Holland. I'm really hoping that the fight between him and Michael Venom Page, like, it'll be cool. Like, I don't want to pick who's going to win, but it would be cool to see Michael Venom Page win because it'll reinforce that there are some guys outside of the UFC that can come in, mix things up, and compete and have fun. I mean, look at when the best example is Gegard Mousasi, 185-pounder who was in the UFC. I believe he was in the top 5 when he left and went to Bellator. He left off of a win streak too. I think he just beat Chris Weidman, and this is before Chris Weidman was on like a bad losing streak. He looked really good. Like, he's really, really good. He went over to Bellator, became the champion at Bellator, and he looked really good. That was an example of a guy who left somewhat on top in the middleweight division in the UFC and went to a different organization and made a lot more money. Another one that I would say who a lot of people aren't big fans of, but Corey Anderson. Corey Anderson was a guy, I believe he left off of a loss, or no, he may have left off of a win. I think he knocked out Johnny Walker. Go figure. But I believe he left off of a win and went over to Bellator and almost became the lightweight champ the light heavyweight champ over at Bellator, and it didn't. It was Gorilla Trap music. Oh shit! What's up, Gorilla Trap? I'm back, baby. Full time now. Anyway, sorry. Um, so yeah, so I don't even remember what I was saying. Let's get back to this before I get off subject again. So after the Patricio Pitbull fight, you move down. In addition to the four bouts featuring current PFL and Bellator champions, former heavyweight champ Bruno Capelozza, who's 15-6, welcomes former Bellator light heavyweight champ Vadim Nemkov, who's 17-2. Oh God. Oh God. Now, oh man. So Vadim is gonna go and move up to heavyweight now. Why? 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 Stay at your fucking weight class. See, I didn't look at this yet until now, and now I'm getting pissed. Stay at your weight class. Why is he moving up to heavyweight? Like that's stupid, dude. Come on. Vadim Nemkov is very good. Like he's a good fighter too. Like he's very good. I think it would be fun to watch him fight in the UFC also. But now he's moving up to heavyweight. Like I don't like seeing this stuff. Like it doesn't normally work out well. Oh God! All right, and then look, a pair of heavy-handed former number one contenders also set the score up at 205 when Brazil's Thiago Santos goes up against former Olympian Yoel Romero. All right, so, all right, so Thiago Santos again, another guy from the UFC who left on a loss. I believe he had a couple of losses. He looked good before he started going on that losing streak. Just so you know, there's a new video up on TikTok, Casual and Connoisseur. Go check that out. That's our other channel with me and my brother Kyle. Beautiful. It's picks for the fights for this upcoming weekend's UFC event. Um, so yeah, so like, man. So Thiago Santos is going up against, Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero was fighting at 185 in the UFC. His fight against Izzy was probably one of the worst things any of us have ever watched. It was not fun. It was not exciting. It was just weird. He went out, the whole fight. The whole fight. This was it. He like landed like one punch, and then Izzy just kicked him in the shin over and over again, and it was bad. It was a snooze fest. And then he goes over into, then he moves over into Bellator. He moves up a weight class, which that seems to be a thing with guys when they leave the UFC at their current weight class. That and my Johnny Sins. I wish, dude. I wish. I actually met Johnny Sins. I did. I have multiple photos with me and him. I actually might be able to find it. Hold on. Let me see. Let me see here. I'm gonna pull this up just for you, if I could find it. Let's see. No, that's not it. Where the hell are all my photos? Let's see here. That's for another day. I'll pull it up another day. If you come back to the stream, I'll have the photo ready next time. Anyway, so um, this whole thing with guys going into other organizations and moving up a weight class, I don't hate it. I don't. Yoel Romero clearly looked better. I don't know how he made 185, but he looked better at 185. He looks a little bit slower at 205. Thiago Santos was 185 in the UFC and then moved up to 205 and then made a run for the title and even fought John Jones. A lot of people thought he beat John Jones. I'm not one of those people. I thought John ended up winning. Personally, I thought that Thiago did great though. Then after that, he didn't really look too good. But again, the guy I think tore both of his ACLs or something like that. The guy had to learn how to fucking walk again, let alone fight at the highest level. I mean, his fight against Glover Teixeira when Glover was making his run at the title was awesome. He almost won, and then Glover overwhelmed him with the grappling, and we know what ended up happening there. And Glover went on to win the belt. But Thiago Santos versus Yoel Romero, that's a fun fight. It is. It's a fun fight. I don't think it's. I mean, Yoel is what 45 now. I mean, God. I mean, how old's Yoel? Let's see. Yoel Romero. How old is Yoel now? Born in 19. Holy fucking shit. He's 46, dude. You you guy did something after me. I don't know what that means. I think you're insinuating that it's sex with Johnny Sins. Um, but anyway, so yeah, Yoel's 46 now, and I hope Volk fights Volkanowski or Volkov. If it's Volkanowski, then I would agree. That would be awesome. It'd be awesome to see a lot of guys fight until they're 46 at a good, and look good. When they suck, it's not fun. I mean, Jesus Christ, look at Tony Ferguson now. It's not looking good for him. So, but that's a fun fight. It's not anything to, you know, blow my skirt up or anything like that. But it's still, it's a fun fight. And then we go down further, and this is probably one of the best fights in the card. Clay Collard is a lot of fun to watch. Like, a lot of people don't know who that is, but he's a lot of fun to watch. And he's fighting AJ McKee, who's 21-1. That's another guy who would do really well in the UFC. Not saying he would be champion, but he would do very well in the UFC. But again, it's like nothing crazy here. And you got Don Davis going on Ariel Helwani's show saying that this is going to be the best card. Is the UFC, they canceled their card in Saudi Arabia the day before this fight. That tells me something. It doesn't tell you shit, bro. It doesn't tell you anything. Like, the UFC is not fucking paying attention to you. Like, you're not doing anything special. I'm sorry. Like, I hate to be the one to say this. I mean, the only other guy that's saying shit that needs to be said most of the time is this dude on YouTube who's blowing up named MMA Guru. Like, he's like, what the fuck are we talking about here, dude? Like, the UFC is not watching what PFL is doing and saying like, oh man, oh god, they're gonna have champs versus champs. We can't do a card. No, no. Dana White is not sitting there saying that. He doesn't give a fucking shit. He doesn't care, and neither does anyone else. Like, and again, not only that, I think this is taking place on a fucking Friday. Why does that matter? UFC's on Saturday. Why would they cancel their card on Saturday if your fight's not even on the same day? Like, that doesn't even make sense, right? Like, what day is this? February 24th. What day of the week is that? Let's see. February 20 February 24th is no, it is a Saturday. Okay, so I'm wrong, but still, that's besides the point. The UFC is not fucking watching and saying like, "Oh, we can't do the event on this day because they're doing this day." Like, the UFC could put on a fight night card and it's still going to get more viewership than this. Like, I hate to be the one to say that, especially considering that you got to fucking pay for this. Like, this is a pay-per-view. This is a fucking pay-per-view. Like, you have to pay for this now. Like, come on, man. If they put on a fight night, good cards on Carolyn Cousin. What's the main events? The main card is good. And I could say something like that, and then you actually look at the prelims, and then you get surprised, So, I mean, like, if you look at the prelims, like the early prelims, like, for instance, this card was stacked even more. We had cancellations, but the first fight of the night is Jimmy Flick versus Malcolm Gordon. That's a great fight. Like, that's a really good fight. It's a great fight that's going to involve a lot of grappling. It's probably going to end in submission. It's probably not going to go the distance. It's going to be good. I don't know why Google is doing this with Jasmine Jasudavicius's fight. Like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know who the fuck she's fighting. But if you saw Jasmine's, I don't know if it was her last fight or the one before. Let's see. No, the fight between her and Miranda Maverick, that was 3 rounds and it was a war. It was a good fight. It was fun to watch. But the main card is actually really good. There's a lot of good fights on there. Neil Magny versus Mike Mallet. That's probably not going to go the distance. That's going to be a fight that's probably going to end in submission. It's probably going to be Mike Malott. He's very good. The guy he's 10 finishes. He's 10 wins, 10 finishes. Chris Curtis versus Mark Andre is going to be a lot of fun too. Mark Andre goes forward. The guy's really fun to watch. Chris Curtis, as we've seen, when he gets into a striking battle, people, it's a lot of fun to watch. He's usually finishing guys. He's got great takedown defense. I mean, I think he set a record. He defended like 25 takedowns or something in his fight against the BJJ black belt, the guy who's like jacked out of his mind, who's got like one of the most decorated BJJ careers out of anyone in the UFC. What the hell is his name? What is his name? What is his name? Um, Not Nasser Dean, not Kelvin. What is this guy's name? What the? Randolfo Vieira. That's his name. So the guy's jacked. So yeah, I mean it's going to be a fun card. The whole card's going to be fun. And then of course we got Jim Miller. Oh no, that's UFC 300. Let's see here. We're going to go back a little bit, and I like the Raquel Pennington versus Myra Brenda Silva fight. I think Raquel's going to win, but Silva she's good. She's good on the ground, man. She's got some good submissions. It's fun. Again, she's relatively exciting to watch. I know people have their gripe with female fighters. I don't know why. I think they're fun to watch. I enjoy it. But this one's good too. Arnold Allen, Mobstar Evilov. That's probably not going to end in a finish. Mobstar has 17 wins with 0 losses. Every win he has in the UFC is by decision. I don't hate decisions. I prefer finishes, but I mean, some fights that are decisions are the greatest fights we've ever seen. I mean, look at Weili Zhang versus Joanna. I mean, that went 5 rounds. It went to decision, but it was considered one of the best fights we've ever seen. I'm a casual, so how to know which fight I should keep an eye on? I would say, I mean, the main event's going to be the best fight, dude. That's the best thing I could say. It's the main event's going to be the best fight. Arnold Allen versus Mobstar, that's going to be a fun fight. Chris Curtis, that's a fun fight. The Neil Magny fight, fun. They're all fun, man. They're all good. They're all good fights, but the main event is the fight to watch. I'm just going to be honest. The main event, Sean Strickland versus Dricus Du Plessis. That's definitely going to be the fight to watch. I don't think it's going to go all 5 rounds. That's going to be a good one. I suggest you watch that. It's going to be good. But on the prelims, another great fight, though. On the regular prelims, Brad Katona versus Garrett Armfield. That is going to be very fun to watch. Going to be awesome. Brad Katona's last fight was one of the best fights I've ever seen. It was incredible. Again, went to decision, but I think between both dudes, I think they threw, I don't know, over 300 strikes each or something. And I think they landed close to 300. So I don't think either one of them barely even missed. It was insane. That's a very, very good fight. This is, Jillian Robertson versus Polyana Viana. Break out the petroleum jelly for that one, bro. Is there something wrong with you? No, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you if you don't watch female fights. I would suggest watching the Jillian Robertson fight, though. That's going to be fun. That'll be probably a little bit of a grappling match. Jillian is a lot of fun to watch. She usually gets a submission. That's good. The Charles Jourdain and Sean Woodson fight is definitely going to be fun, too. Striking fight. Everyone likes striking. A lot of people like striking versus grappling. That's going to be a lot of fun. I suggest you watch that. And let's see here. All right. So, but let's go back to this whole debacle and, oh, God, man. So let's see. During the Champions vs. Champions prelim card, top featherweight contender from PFL, Gabriel Braga, who's 12-1, and top featherweight contender from Bellator, Aaron Pico, will square off. Aaron Pico's a good wrestler, man. He's fun to watch. I mean, he had his little issues in the beginning of his career, but he's looking pretty good. Another guy who I wouldn't mind seeing go over to the UFC. And oh dear God. And then all right. Here we go. And then we have this. Oh Lord. Biagio Ali Walsh, grandson of iconic boxer Muhammad Ali, makes his pro debut at 155 pounds. Oh, good to know. Champions vs. Champions will also mark the return of Clarissa Shields, the world's greatest women's female boxer. Oh, God. Rounding out a great collection of talent in MMA and combat sports. First off, I would love to know who Clarissa Shields is going to fight. That's the first thing. Because, oh, God. They're pushing this whole thing with her so much. And she hasn't shown really anything remotely good when it comes to mixed martial arts. Nothing. Nothing at all. And she just lost. And they're pushing this so hard. Respect to her for what she's done in boxing. It's awesome. And respect to her for coming over to MMA. but they're pushing this whole MMA thing with her too much, and it's not clicking with fans. It's just not. It's I'm curious. If she got better, cool. I'd be happy. How Volk does against current bantamweight and featherweight, even lightweight champs at PFL and Bellator. Truthfully, I think Volk can probably beat probably all of them in the same night. And of course, I mean, bantamweight is way smaller than Volkanovski, so I mean that's kind of ridiculous. But Volkanovski will probably beat all three of them in the same night. Literally, it's just he's the best, bro. I mean, I know he lost to Islam, but he's the best. Like he is the best. He took that fight against Islam on 6 days' notice. He cut like 40 pounds. Like, I mean, he's the best, man. He is the best. So, but anyway, so for Don Davis to say that this is going to be better than any other UFC event is just silly. Like it's stupid. It doesn't even make sense here. So, man. Anyway, but yeah, so that's that whole thing. But now, if you go like this guy's talking so much shit, and we go over to the UFC 300, which is like supposed to be the biggest card of the year. They don't know who the main event is going to be yet. I have no idea who it's going to be. I'm curious to find out myself. I think I heard rumors that they're trying to do Leon versus Bilal as the main event. I think that would probably be the biggest mistake. That would be like a Don Davis thing, like saying oh, this is the best. Like, come on, bro. Like, no, it's not. It's not the best. It's not the best. It's just not. So, but if you look at the card now, I mean, Jesus Christ, China versus China, Weili Zhang versus Yan Xiaonan. That's awesome. Like that's a good one. That'll be fun. But I mean, let's be honest here. The main event of this card should be the BMF fight. Call it what it is. That's the best fight on the card, which was just announced, which is Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway. Max Holloway's moving up, and he's going to fight Justin Gaethje for the BMF belt, and we get to see that happen. I mean, that's incredible. I like how they put that together. That totally blew my mind. I like literally creamed myself when I read that. And then you go over and you watch the next fight, which is Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan. Another fight, which is like it's that good. Like it's you come in your pants good. Like that is such a good matchup. We finally get to see Arman Tsarukyan fight the top guys. This guy deserves to be there. He should have been there a year ago. No one want. It's the same thing with Islam. No one wanted to fight Islam coming up. A lot of people don't like Islam because from Dagestan, because people love Conor McGregor and just hate the fact that Khabib beat him or whatever. But Arman Tsarukyan, his first fight in the UFC, I think he was like 23 years old. His first fight was Islam. And he gave Islam probably the most trouble outside of Alexander Volkanovski. This fight's going to be awesome. And this is going to be a very tough fight for Charles Oliveira because, again, Charles moves forward, man. And when he gets hurt, he pulls guard. A lot of times that works for him because he's so dangerous on the ground. But so is Arman. Arman is so dangerous on the ground. The guy's wrestling is incredible. He is extremely dangerous. This is going to be a banger. And again, this isn't even for a fucking title. And that fight is better than any other fight on the PFL championship fucking, Bellator matchup. That's a better fight than all of it. And no disrespect to those fighters. I don't want to be disrespectful. That's not what I'm doing here. It's just the truth. And then you go and you look at the next fight. Yuri Prohaska versus Alexander Rakic. Like, holy fuck, that's awesome. Like, that is such a fun fight to watch. Like, that's going to be insane. That is two guys who strike that are going to beat the living piss out of each other. A crazy light heavyweight fight. Alexander Rakic, if he didn't get injured in that Jan Blachowicz fight, he would be right there. He might even be champion right now if he didn't get injured against Jan. He was winning that fight, and then he got injured, and then that's what happened. He's been out for a while. Move down further. I mean, dude, Aljamain Sterling moving up to featherweight now, and he's fighting Calvin Kattar. I mean, holy crap. I mean, that's another one that's great. Now, granted, We don't know what's going to happen here. Like, I mean, how are we supposed to know? Because we've never seen Aljamain fight at 145 pounds. We've only seen him fight at 135 pounds, which he has been considerably bigger than a lot of the guys at 135 pounds because he walks around at like 175, 180 pounds and cuts down to 135. So he's big. He's very big. He's not going to be big at featherweight. He's going to be probably the right size. You know what I mean? Like maybe he might even be undersized. Who knows? But he's going to be like the right size. He's a grappler. Calvin Kattar is a striker. Who knows what's going to happen here? That could go either way. We have no clue how that's going to go. No, it's a banger fight. And then Jesus Christ, Bo Nickel. Finally, we get to see this kid fight again. Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage. Cody Brundage has been looking really, really good at middleweight. Really, really good. But Bo Nickel has looked invincible, as we know. Anyone with those kind of wrestling accolades, if you fight anyone, you're probably going to get taken down. But that's not what's been happening. He's been knocking dudes out. I mean, the last guy he fought, again, it was short notice. I think his name was Val. Kudos to him. He came in confident, and then Bo Nickel knocked him out. It is what it is. It happens, you know. But he got to be in the UFC, and I think he's still in the UFC. I think they're looking for another fight for that kid. But again, Bo Nickel coming in versus Cody Brundage. That's another great fight. We finally get to see Bo Nickel, see what he's going to do. Because let's be honest here, man. The middleweights, they don't have the best grapplers. They don't at all. One of the best grapplers at middleweight was Derek Brunson. Derek Brunson was one of the best grapplers at middleweight. And now he's in the PFL. Like, what are we talking about when it comes to grappling? I mean, yeah, like Drickus has got great grappling, you know what I mean? But like, let's be honest here, man. Like, he's not going to have the same kind of wrestling as Bo Nickel. It's impossible. You can't. When you have those kind of wrestling accolades, you're not going to out-grapple this kid. It's just not going to happen. So it's very obvious that this is shaping up. We're going to see Bo Nickel fight Khamzat Chimaev at some point, and we're going to see that grappling exchange. That's going to be awesome. And then we go down further. After they both won, I think they called each other out. Davison Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt at bantamweight is awesome. I mean, Davison Figueiredo came in and he beat Rob Font. He looked really, really good. That was another guy who was killing himself to make 125, moved up to 135, and looked awesome. Hopefully, we see the same thing with Aljamain Sterling. Davison Figueiredo, it's going to be tough, man. Cody Garbrandt, and a lot of people have a lot of things to say about him that are negative, and I don't know why. The guy's a former champion. Like, yeah, he's gotten knocked out. He's had his fair share of losses recently, and he hasn't looked so good. But, his last fight, he looked good. He looked good in his last fight. When he knocked out Rafael Assunção, he looked really good. It's just it seems like sometimes, he'll get cracked, and then he gets emotional and starts swinging, and then all hell breaks loose, and then he gets caught. It happens. I love Cody. Love watching Cody. I loved his rise to the top. And anyone that has watched his career, if you watch his performance against Dominic Cruz when he won the belt, that was one of the best fighters ever at 135 pounds. Ever. That was one of the best fighters. He looked incredible that night. He looked unstoppable. Years ago now, though. We'll see how he looks. Move down further. The fight that got me, honestly, one of the most excited was Jim Miller, New Jersey native, just like myself, fighting at UFC 100, 200, and now 300. The only man in history to do that is Jim Miller. And the best part is he was trying to make it here and thinking that this was going to be his retirement. Lo and behold, the guy's won his last, I think, 4 out of 5 fights. And now if he beats Bobby Green, who he's set to fight at UFC 300, he gets back into the top 15. And he's 40. He still looks good. He's training. His training looks great. He feels good. He's doing things. The guy's got Lyme's disease, and he's still fighting at a top level. I mean, we're going to see what's going to happen here, man. He has a chance against Bobby Green because I don't know if you saw, but if you watch what happened to Bobby Green against Jalen Turner, God have mercy. Like, we don't know what Bobby's going to look like now. We don't. I think he had like 25 unanswered strikes. I mean, Jalen Turner was he was beating a lifeless corpse on the ground. And the ref was like, and I'm like, what are you, he's dead. He's fucking dead. Like, stop the fight. We don't know what Bobby Green we're going to see here. We don't know if his chin's gone. Poor Bobby if Jim beats him. It sucks. Like it sucks. I love Bobby Green, but we don't know what we're going to see. Like we have no idea what kind of Bobby Green we're going to see. But Jim Miller's look good though. I mean, we're going to see who Jim Miller's going to be. What Jim Miller's going to come out that time. I mean, he's looks good every time he fights now. And the funny thing is I think the fight that he ended up losing out of that last 4 out of 5 fights was a late notice fight. Well, late notice for he had a change of opponent. He was supposed to fight someone else, then someone else came in and they beat him. But yeah, man. I mean, this is UFC 300. Like I said, from the beginning of the stream to now, we went over the whole PFL versus Bellator champion fucking thing, and now just looking at UFC 300, almost every fight on this card could main event a UFC fight night and be better than what they're putting together with the PFL. I'm sorry. It's just that's just the facts here. Maybe not the Johnny Eblin fight. Johnny Eblin is awesome. You know, all those fighters are awesome. I mean no disrespect. Bobby's got the speed advantage though. Bobby does have the speed advantage. Absolutely. And Bobby clearly has grappling too. Bobby Green has grappling that most people didn't even know about until we saw him submit Tony Ferguson. Most people don't really see it, and he never uses it ever. He never, ever uses his grappling because his striking is just so damn good. It's so crisp the way he moves and rolls and dodges punches and stuff like that. Bobby Green is a fan favorite, at least to me. Like I'm a giant fan. I'm a fan of every single fighter on this card. So out of every fight on this card, because we don't know who the main event is yet. But if we were to pick one fight on this card to be the main event that's already booked, it's pretty clear that it would be Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway, right? I don't think anyone's going to disagree. Pretty clear that it would be Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway should be the main event of UFC 300, barring they find some other matchup that's going to make me come in my pants. I don't know if they're going to, though. I truthfully don't know. If there's anyone that's watching right now that would suggest a fight that would main event UFC 300 that would be better than what they already have listed here, please let me know, because I don't know. I don't know offhand. We already know that Conor versus Chandler is supposed to be headlining International Fight Week, so that's out. Ooh. A rematch? I don't know, man. Hamzat versus Usman at UFC 300. I don't think that would be the main event, but a 5-rounder with them two with a full camp? Shavkat Rakhmonov. Oh, man. Shavkat versus Usman. I like that. I like that a lot. Aspinall versus Jones. I mean, of course, I would love to see that, but we know we're not going to see that. Jones is still injured, man. Jones is still injured, but I like Shavkat versus Usman. I like that a lot. That'd be fun. That'd be really fun. It would have to be 5 rounds, though. It would definitely have to be 5 rounds. There's no way that they could do a 3-rounder with that. That would have to be 5. So that guy Shavkat's different, man. That guy is literally different. My favorite thing too was when Shavkat was fighting Wonder Boy, and it looked like on the feet, like it didn't look too good. Like it didn't look too good for him. And then the grappling exchanges started, and then he got on him, ended up pulling him to the ground, and ends up submitting him. And everyone was like, "Oh, that was like kind of weird. Why he did that?" You come to find out that like Shavkat's like fucking hand was broken or something like that, or he was injured or something, and he was injured before the fight even started, and he still won. He still finished, and now I think he's 18-0 with like 18 finishes, which is insane. That's insane. Shavkat versus Usman. I like that. If they book that fight, I wouldn't hate that. I wouldn't hate that at all. But it's got to be for a belt. That wouldn't be for a belt. You know what I mean? So, and that's what I'm saying. Like, oh man, like clearly at 170, Bilal deserves the shot at Leon. I mean, he definitely deserves it. I know people hate Bilal, but I mean, he deserves the shot. He deserves a shot at Usman. It's very, very. I'm not Usman. I'm sorry, at Leon Edwards. He deserves a shot, especially because they have the history where they already fought, then the eye poke, and then this, that, and the other thing. I mean, everyone says like, "Oh, well, we saw how that fight was going, and it was pretty clear that Leon was going to win." It was like, yeah, it was pretty fucking clear that Usman was going to beat Leon too. And look what happened in the last 30 seconds of that fight. So yeah, Izzy versus Hamzat. That's fun too. I don't think that's the main event because again, the main event's got to be for a belt. It's got to be for a belt. Izzy versus Hamzat would be fun. I like that matchup too. That would be good. That would definitely be good. I think that the co-main is definitely going to be Weili Zhang versus Yan Xiaonan. It's going to be. I mean, because it's for a belt and everything like that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think that Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway would be the co-main event to whatever the actual fight for the main event would be. But yeah, so anyway, so we went over all these fights. We went over everything. We pretty much know that whatever Don Davis is pushing, especially considering that this Bellator PFL thing is the super fights. The super fights. Like what is so fucking super about Ryan Bader versus a giant who's 6'8"? Like what is so super about that, dude? Like, come on. I don't know. I'm not on board with it, man. I mean, Johnny Eblin versus Impa is probably going to be the best fight on that card. That's probably going to be the best one. Just saying. So that's that. But let's talk about the BMF belt for a second. Let's talk about that because when this thing was invented, it came from Nate Diaz's just subconscious, just came out of his brain. Comes out, during his interview, I'm gonna be, just the baddest motherfucker on the planet, whatever it is that he said. After his win over Pettis, and right afterwards, Jorge Masvidal had a good last fight, and then they went over to Masvidal, and then we saw that fight starting to come together right from there, and then in the post-fight press conference, drops baddest motherfucker and that whole thing, and then Dana White does what he does best. He took something, he saw an opportunity and went running with it. And then we created the BMF belt, which everyone wants that. It seems like more people want that belt than the actual belt. So, what is the qualifications to fight for the BMF belt? What are the qualifications for that? As we've seen, let's look at who fought already for the BMF belt. We have Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal. That fight happened. We saw what happened. I think we got robbed by the refs, especially because it was Nate Diaz who had the cut over his eye, and he got cut. Nate Diaz always gets cut and he bleeds, and we got robbed of what could have been an even more fun fight. Masvidal was winning. Let's be honest, but it got cut short, and that sucks. That's not good. That's not good at all. But Masvidal ended up becoming the BMF belt, the BMF champion, and then afterwards went on to lose multiple fights. But the belt was never put on the line. And then, because he fought for the actual welterweight belt, but the belt never transferred. His belt never transferred to Usman when Usman beat him. You know what I mean? His belt never transferred to Colby when Colby beat him. And now, a couple years later, they booked a fight between Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier for the BMF title, which I guess is technically vacant because Masvidal retired. So, but Masvidal technically lost the belt, in my opinion. When he lost the belt. So then it was vacant, and then they put it up for grabs against Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier. But now that's at a different weight class. That's at 155. Masvidal fought for it at 170. So should we have a BMF belt for each weight class? Wouldn't that make sense if we're going to do this? Shouldn't there be qualifications on who gets to compete for that BMF belt, whether it be certain amount of fights in the UFC, certain amount of finishes in the UFC, certain amount of performance of the night bonuses in the UFC, time in the UFC, amount of fights in the UFC, like all of those things should probably come into play, I would think, on who qualifies as the BMF. At least at 155, it's pretty safe to say that Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje, both of them qualified to fight for that belt. I think that was the perfect matchup. Just like I think that Masvidal and Nate Diaz at 170, I think that qualified just because of who those guys are. But now we put Max Holloway into the mix with Max Holloway moving up to 155 because and again, I mean, you look at Max Holloway's career and what left is there for that man to do at 145 pounds? I mean, he's gotten 3 shots now at Volkanovski. A lot of people thought he won the second fight. I was one of them. Even betting apps refunded money because they thought it was a bad decision and they thought that Max Holloway won the second fight. But then the third fight happened. And we saw what Volkanovski did to Max Holloway in that fight. It was very obvious that Volkanovski was the winner. And there's no question that he was the actual champion after that. But now we have him moving up to 155 because, again, who is he left? Like, who's he? He's beaten everybody at 145. Everybody except for Volkanovski. He's not going to be getting a title shot anytime soon. It's very clear. The only person he hasn't fought really that's like kind of right there that he should fight is Ilya Topuria, right? I mean Josh Emmett, he could fight him, but still, I mean Ilya Topuria would have been the only other guy for him to fight, but they gave Ilya the shot at Volkanovski. So who does Max fight at 145? Nobody. So this actually makes sense. And then to give him a shot at the BMF belt, I think was genius. Absolute genius, because if you rewind the clock back a little bit more and you watch, this honestly was the first BMF belt, in my opinion. It was Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier, the rematch at 155 for the interim belt. I believe when Khabib was the champion. I'm pretty sure when Khabib was champion. And then obviously we know that Dustin Poirier won the interim belt, and then he fought Khabib and lost. Pretty much the same way Jesus Christ, the interim belt, Tony Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje, that could have been technically a BMF belt at the time. That's when Tony Ferguson was on top. Justin Gaethje was making his run at the belt again, and then he ended up winning. Tony Ferguson I don't think he's won a fight since, and that's a real shame. But that could have been a BMF belt. And then, of course, Justin Gaethje goes on and fights Khabib and then loses also. This fight is huge. This is a fantastic fight here. To see this happen at 155, I think Max Holloway moving up is a great decision for him, his career, because there's not much left for him at 145, at least right now. I think he'll go back. He'll probably fight a couple more guys down there. But think of all the matchups Max has at 155. There's a slew of people. If you look at that guy's record and who he's fought, there's a slew of people at 155 pounds that he has not fought that would be a lot of fun to watch him fight. I didn't even hate the idea when Aljamain Sterling was calling him out with his move up to 145. If Max Holloway did that, that would have been cool too. But remember, like, now the qualifications for BMF. This fight goes through. Justin Gaethje retains his belt. Let's go that route. Justin Gaethje retains his belt, right, at 155 pounds, his BMF belt. It's pretty clear. After that, he should be next to fight Islam. Right? Wrong? I don't know. I think he should. A lot of people are saying that Arman versus Charles Oliveira, the winner of that, will probably fight Islam. I don't hate that either. I think Arman's going to win, personally. Nothing against Charles, but I just think Arman's going to win. I want to see the rematch between him and Islam. I think that'll be great. So I'm kind of in between those three guys. It's kind of, I think, even if, all right, so just say Justin Gaethje wins, and then he's got his BMF belt, and then they give him the shot at 155-pound belt against Islam. Does Justin Gaethje's BMF belt go on the line too? Or because he's defending it, and originally this belt was not meant to be defended. That's what we were told. But now he's going to fight someone who has the belt. shouldn't he defend his BMF belt there? I mean, Islam is putting his belts on the line. Why wouldn't Justin Gaethje? But again, the qualifications come into play on what constitutes being a BMF. A lot of people will say that Islam is not that. I mean, when you look at it talent wise, because if you go by talent and wins and everything like that, like technically the BMF should be the champion of every weight class. It should be the baddest motherfucker in the division or on the planet, whatever you want to call it. I mean, they should be. They're the best, technically. They have the belts. But then we have a separate belt. It's almost, I mean, the BMF belt's almost starting to look like a fucking interim belt. That's what it's starting to look like, right? Am I wrong about that? I don't know. But yeah, so if Max does that and he fights Islam, does he put it on the line? I don't know. If they give the title shot to Arman or Charles after this, does Gaethje defend his BMF belt again against someone else? I don't know. Now, if Max Holloway wins, now Max Holloway has the BMF belt. He beat Justin Gaethje, who I believe is ranked number 1 or 2 at lightweight. Does Max Holloway jump into the title picture now? Does he get to fight Islam next? That's probably his best chance at getting a shot at a title anytime soon. I don't know. I don't know. I love it though. I love what they're doing. I love how they're making this happen and mixing this kind of stuff up. But I think the qualifications personally, when it comes to fighting for a BMF belt, I think you should have a certain amount of finishes in the UFC. You should have a certain amount of performance of the nights or fight of the nights in the UFC. Not your whole career, in the UFC only. I think you should also I think there should be a BMF belt at each weight class. That I think they should do. And not remember, not every weight class should have one right now because not every fighter there's not I'm sure there's maybe one, but a lot of some of the weight classes there's not two fighters that meet qualifications. Like at 125, it's kind of hard to pick who would be a BMF at 125. 135, there's a lot of people. 145, clearly a lot of people. 155, of course, there's people. 170, of course, there's guys that could fall into that category. 185, yeah, there's people there as well. 205, it's a little bit of a struggle. I don't know. Heavyweight, I mean, I don't know. I would just pick John Jones automatically. John Jones is the greatest of all time. I don't care what anyone says. People can talk about his steroid use and busting for drugs and this that, and the other thing. John Jones is 100% the goat of mixed martial arts. He's still fighting today. Like people that are saying like he's scared of like. Have you ever met a professional fighter before? Like ever? Like people that say that shit. It's always faceless idiots on social media that say this stuff. But like, have you ever met a professional fighter? Like just any of them, not like the guys in the UFC, any professional fighter, 99% of the time, they're not scared of anything. They fight for a living. They fight in a cage, especially guys that don't even make a living. They're fighting for peanuts. They're fucking crazy. Like it's a different type of person. So I think that there needs to be qualifications moving forward for the BMF belt. We'll talk more about that on the next live stream. I do, but yeah, there's got to be qualifications moving forward. I mean, you can't just like pick names out of a fucking hat. I mean, so far I think they've done a great job with it, but I do think there should be one in each weight class, especially if two guys in the division have not gotten a belt or shot at the belt, but they're meeting that criteria. They could be moving towards that. I think that could be great. I mean, Jesus Christ, if you look at Drew Dober at 155, that guy is really like he's awesome to watch. He's fun to watch. He has the most knockouts at that weight class now. Granted, his knockout wins, the names that he has them over, he's even said it himself. I mean, no disrespect about this. Even he has said it's not like comparable because he beat Dustin Poirier's record. It's not comparable to Dustin Poirier's technically because the names that he has of the people he knocked out. But I mean, that guy is, I think, right there. He's on his way to being a bad motherfucker, in my opinion. But yeah, so that's where I'm at with this whole thing. First of all, Ariel Helwani is a fucking weasel. He is. I agree with the MMA guru. I agree with pretty much everybody that thinks that Ariel is a fucking weasel. I've never liked him. I do watch his show. I do because he gets interviews with pretty much the people that we want to see interviews with, and it kind of that's the stuff I like to watch and see. It sucks that he's on the other end of it. I'm not a fan of him. Um, I'll tell you what though, this MMA guru guy, I was very skeptical at first of his content and everything like that. I don't like the way that he talks about certain fighters personally, but that's my opinion. It's who gives a fuck. But I mean, the way he talked about Marab when Marab beat Piotr Yan, that wasn't cool, man. I didn't like that personally. But again, to each his own, man. Whatever he wants to say. Um, Freedom of speech, baby. That's how it goes. Um, and then the stuff he said about Terrence McKinney. But when Terrence McKinney was trying to dox him, man, that was a little much. But you know, because all his MMA guru said was words, man. Like he didn't do anything. I mean, what Terrence was doing was kind of dangerous, man. I mean, like some people are fucking crazy and do stupid things. Like just say like he did find out MMA guru's address and then posted it on Twitter. And then people went to his house and stuff like that. And I think he lives with his parents and stuff like that. I think he lives with his parents. But like if he lives with his parents, like, people are crazy. People do dumb stuff. Like, it could end up being really bad. And we don't want to see stuff like that happen. But yeah. So that's pretty much it for today on MMA Court. I'm gonna try and go live every day. I don't know what time yet. We're going to move forward with doing lives. We have videos coming out that I'm going to be doing. The editing is not going to be stupendous and exponential just yet because I don't have time to edit those types of things into crazy videos yet. But the lives are fun because I get to interact with people. Those are a good time. Thank you everyone that's come onto the page and talked and give their opinions on what's going on and what they think and talking and all those things. Anyone that comes on, you're more than welcome. Obviously, be respectful to me. I'll be respectful to you. There's no reason to be disrespectful here to me or to any fighters. But this was awesome. This was my first live I've ever done on anything. It was cool. It was fun. I enjoyed it. And I got a bunch of other things I got to get done. Forgive the ridiculous background. This is all I have right now. I'm going to find something better with a better setup, but I had to get it set up because I've never even done a live stream before. I hope the screen sharing thing worked. That would be nice. I hope it worked. And I hope that you guys could see what I had, but I don't even know if it worked. I don't know if the screen sharing worked. But it would be nice if it did. If it didn't, then I'll figure it out. But this is a work in progress. I hope everyone enjoyed it. But I am Justin with MMA Court. You can follow me on MMA Court on YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram at MMA.court. I also have another Instagram profile with my brother called Casual and Connoisseur. I want to give the actual name of what it is. Let's see here, because I don't want to mess it up. We just started the page. It is casual underscore connoisseur. Go on there and watch. We do MMA picks on there, and we also post funny videos and stuff when it has to do with MMA. I have my reaction video on there when I found out about the BMF belt being put on the line again. I found it very entertaining. I thought it was funny. You could also find us. Oh, excuse me. You could also find us at TikTok on TikTok at casual underscore connoisseur on TikTok. Um, Again, we're posting things on there as well. I know that's a platform that a lot of people are using now. Not a huge fan of the platform, but it is what it is. You got to do what you got to do. We'll be on Snapchat at some point as well. We're going to be making tons of videos. There's going to be content coming out every single day. Every day moving forward. We are putting something out. I'm putting something out, or I'm putting something out with my brother. Tune in, find out what we're doing. A lot of big things coming. I've spoken to Michael Chandler personally. I would love to get him on my channel. If anyone that watches this knows him personally also and wants to tell him that I want to talk to him again, let me know. That's pretty much it. MMA Court. This is my channel. Court is adjourned, right? All right, guys.